my mechanic was not too keen on the idea of me assisting with the annual on Lola, my 210. Let's find out why in the hangar. Hello, welcome to In the Hangar. I'm Dan Milliken.
And I'm Christy Wong. Today's episode is brought to you by some really great sponsors like Flying Eyes, but more on them later. I'll be honest, Dan, I wouldn't be too happy with you working on my airplane either, so.
Oh, the truth comes out. Oh, and it hurts. So, well, okay, you guys, we've had this guy on the show several times. Great mechanic, the best as far as the 210 in the world. John,
yeah, I don't know
Cessna
about
John
that.
Effinger, thank you for coming
Cessna
back.
John,
Well,
good to see you.
I have to say that because, yeah, you were not keen on the idea of me helping with the annual.
I knew it would be an eye opener for you.
It was a huge eye opener.
And it's generally time consuming, and so there's good and bad. You know, good for you because you get to learn about your airplane. Bad for me because you know
You had to work with
it's
me.
extra work that you generally wind up doing.
Yeah, so does it take longer when you're doing an owner-assisted annual, or does it help?
Well, you know, if you're running a business, and I've slowed down, so, you know, I don't have employees now, but it's like looking over a new hire, you know, essentially.
So it's slower.
You got to learn, you know, what their weak areas are, where their strong areas are, where they need you there on the airplane. So, you know, it's like a new hire, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, you could give him the grunt work at least, you know.
And he
make it-
did.
Okay,
But you know what?
perfect.
I will say this. So, you know, I got into the subflooring. I did all the cleaning. Got into the wings. Did all the cleaning. The grunt work, as you say. I learned more from the grunt work.
Sure.
Than any. Now I understand so much more about the operations. If I have now a leak on the ground, a couple of drops, I'm going to know where it's coming from.
Right.
You know,
right.
whereas before I don't know. It's you know. So that was really helpful. But to set the stage for why I was able to do this, John, you said you're starting to slow down. He is. He's not taking any more work. He's not taking any annuals. And so for me to get my
New
plane,
annuals.
yeah.
New
Well, but even so, you didn't
I'm
want to do
cutting-
mine,
Yeah, right, and I'm cutting back. Well, I can't handle all, you know, the regular flow.
So the
work.
only
don't
way
have
I could
help.
get his master touch on my plane was if I promised to do all the grunt work.
Okay.
So
Well, and there's more to it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been working on that airplane for a long time. You know, we've been friends now for
a while.
quite a few years since you bought the plane and I met you. And with the little miscommunication we had was the owner assist, and I kept telling Dan, well, you know, owner assist means you've got to assist. So, you know, working the schedules, and it took longer for you,
It did,
you know,
because
to
I'm
get the
I'm
airplane
working,
back,
yeah.
and you had your own thing going. And I saved it for you.
You did.
You know? So,
which was an eye opener for me too, because I'm like, I'll do all the cleaning.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be gone for a week. I've got to shoot here and there. I thought I'd come back and a little bit would be done. And what? No, he left it for me.
well, and people, you know, you hear these people talking about, and this is why I wanted to do it, you know, because you got your show going and stuff, and you expand on these areas. And, you know, I hear these guys, well, I had a good annual this year, you know, didn't cost me anything, we're done in 2 days.
That's not a good.
Can you
angle.
open your airplane in 2 days?
No,
You know?
absolutely not.
I mean, now
And
that
clean
you've
it.
done it, no, just open it up.
Oh,
How
I
long
know.
does it take just to open the wing?
It took a day to
You know,
open
it's
it.
a full day just to
Yeah.
open up the wings. So how do you do an annual in 2 days? If it takes a day just to look and open the wings and another day to close it all up and a day to put your interior in, how do you get an annual done in 2 days?
You don't.
You can't.
No. And I think the one biggest takeaway coming out of doing the annual with you is how important cleanliness is. I had never understood how important cleanliness was. But if you keep everything clean from the engine compartment to the subflooring to the wing, all the empennage, you keep it clean, your airplane will tell you what's wrong.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And we had that actuator.
Yeah.
And that actuator, what did I write that up in 2007?
To keep an eye on monitor,
To
yeah.
monitor it. And then I missed one annual on it. And then the next time we opened it, I was like, oh, we got to fix this now. Now
Yeah,
it's
now
actually
it's
needs to be
time.
fixed. You know, before it'd be 1 or 2 drops. And with keeping it clean like that, you get to see inside, that's not normal now.
Yeah.
So it's beneficial. I opened the plane this week, a pre-purchase. It's a 1979. I don't think they've opened the floors
Since
in that
1980.
airplane. Yeah,
Right.
since they were closed the first time, So, it does make a difference.
Absolutely. I've done 4 owner-assisted annuals
How
on
long
the
did
Warrior.
it take?
Well, actually, so it varies. It depends on
Right.
what the
How many
airplane
squawks?
needs and, what all is required. One of the biggest things that I would tell people going into it is make sure you communicate with your AMPIA in advance on what the expectations are. Because I did
Right.
one in particular where we went to go start this annual. Okay, I'm gonna be there to help. I'll do the grunt work. I'll turn wrenches, do whatever that's needed. And he gets there and he's like, well, why isn't the airplane clean? Well, I didn't know, speaking of cleanliness, I didn't realize that he wanted me to have the airplane washed and cleaned before we even started. There was
And that's
no
really good.
no expectation there.
Well, what's
Now,
really
it's
funny
not
is
good if
I would drop my plane off for an annual with John in the past, and invariably I get a nasty gram from John of how dirty the airplane was, and I'm like, I washed it before we got in. He's just being pernickety and all this kind of stuff. Now I understand why. It was dirty, and now when I go to clean my airplane, I know it's a lot better.
And if
I know so much more now, and I know why
your
you do
plane
it.
takes, it's an 8-hour day.
Yes.
That's a day less of your 2-day annual that we had to do your annual.
See, and
right?
I thought cleaning the airplane was 30 minutes. So yeah,
yeah.
I
Well,
learned something.
I did something a little bit different this year, and it worked out really, really well for me, but that's because I'm in a flying club. I actually solicited help from my flying club members. So I said, hey guys, if you'd like to come out and see the airplane undergo an annual and help, turn screwdrivers, et cetera, help pull inspection panels, whatnot. I had like 10 people show up. With myself and my AMPIA, we got everything done in 3 days.
Because
3
you had an
days.
army.
Right.
We did have an army. And the thing too that I realized from that is, if you've got friends that are maybe curious or whatnot, they could come help. And they did the grunt work. They did the cleaning. So we washed the airplane. We, pulled the inspection panels. And then the IA, she went in and got to work. So all she had to do was do all the inspections, write out the squawks. I mean, I had a couple of squawks that I knew going in, so I already had everything ordered ahead of time. I mean, we were boom, boom, boom. It was
All right.
great.
So for you guys out there, in January of 2025, you want to come help me do the annual, please do. John, you were reticent to have an owner come in and assist. It's not like every pilot out there, if you want to go do this, reach out to your A&P and they'll gladly have you. It's not that way, and why?
And, and I've heard, or I've read before, where they promote, well, if I can't do an owner assist, then I'm going to go somewhere else. And that was pushed out in the article that I read.
Oh.
It's like, well, if your mechanic doesn't let you work in your airplane, and you need to take it somewhere else. Well, you could go in and I hear people just like you go to your Ford dealership, and our insurance won't cover you,
Right.
Well, that's just a, excuse probably. It's more of what we're talking about. It's like bringing in a new hire. I don't know your work habits. I'm not going to let you just grab a screw gun and start pulling panels off of a wing.
It's a liability.
Well, no, it's not just that. Now, you've got a Piper.
Yeah, I
But
do.
on the Cessna, you've got 10 30-second flush head screws, and it's a machine screw. And it's not, remember, well, and you learned a lesson on that too.
Yeah, okay.
What
you
happened?
just
Okay,
can't-
story time.
But you
Confession time.
can't let everybody loose just on a screw gun like that, because they could, you got 300 screws.
Dan, what did you
Okay.
do?
And you
what
can
did
round
you do?
them all off easily.
All right, so here's the confession time with in the hangar confession time. We finished the annual. I took the plane and I flew it. Brant from Colton Mortgage needed a ride to Uvalde, so I flew to Uvalde and I picked him up. When I landed Uvalde and I pulled into the ramp, could not open the door.
Okay.
The door would not open. It was stuck. And
It's okay, you've got two.
I do, and that's actually what I did to get out. I tried for a while. I was like, I don't want to really break it or anything, but it's caught on something. And so I ended up bailing out the other door.
Okay.
I came around, and there on the Cessnas, the 210s, you've got, what's the panel right
Yeah,
there?
that fillet panel, the wing.
Yeah, there's
intersect
a
fairing.
small little strip panel that's right here by the door. Apparently somebody didn't tighten the screws good enough, and most of them had flown out.
Darn those high
The
wings.
panel had come down and was now blocking the door from opening.
And those were the loose screws. Those are the ones like you have in the Piper, you know.
Yeah.
So-
and you know and. we
And so what
talked
I
about
did,
that,
yeah,
though.
so I carry a screwdriver with me in my flight bag, and I went around every single screw while I waited on Brant to make sure that they were tight. And John had told me, he had said, because I was using a power screwdriver to put them all back in, I had it on a lower setting because I didn't want to overdrive it.
Right.
So I did that, but I probably needed another click or two up. And he told me, you can do that, but go back around them with a screwdriver with your hands so you can feel it and make sure it's tight. I thought I'd done it. Apparently I didn't.
Actually, I was having you leave them loose, and then I said, keep that screwdriver in your pocket, and then go around and snug.
Okay, well, yeah.
And it's technique. When you got somebody new, you know, you
Yep.
don't let them loose with these screw guns and stuff.
Right.
And you tell them to leave it loose, and then you got to get that feel.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like a junior mechanic starting out. You know, you got to get a mechanical feel on
So
everything.
don't leave Dan alone without adult supervision.
That and carry a bag of extra screws in the plane.
Well,
Yeah.
and the guy that did the final walk around should have really caught that.
Yeah,
you know?
well,
that
the
one would
guy
have been
that did it
would have been
should've.
kind of tough because the panel would close the gap and you really can't tell. But still,
Yeah.
you know, these are the things that come up when you do have a new hire. And myself, you know, coming by as an IA, I'm not going to see that, you know, and it's going to be hidden. And these are problems that you won't have if you've got a regular operating
Yeah.
shop and you got guys that, you know, been doing this for years.
I mean, I've seen
so
stuff
that's
come out
part
of
of the owner
shops.
assist.
I've seen stuff come out of shops the same way though. I'll be honest with you.
Oh,
And it's
So
always the
that's-
junior mechanic too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's who they leave to put all the panels back on, and that's
well,
where a lot of
I
these
tell you what,
problems
if
come
I was
from.
working at a shop, you would want me to finish up and close up the airplane because I will never let that happen again.
Right, you learned.
I
It was a learning
learned
lesson.
big time.
Well, speaking of screwdrivers, what kind of tools would you recommend that owners keep on hand for owner-assisted maintenance, owner-assisted annuals?
You know, that's a hard call right there. You know who I am about my toolbox.
Okay. So, you know,
So,
he has the.
I can't have
he
you
has
bringing a
the-
rollaway.
He has the usual sign on the toolbox say, you know, do you really trust your life to touch my tools kind of stuff that you see in every mechanic's toolbox. He means it. So, you know, I'm very observant. I watch where his tools go.
Does he have like the outline of?
Oh, my
where
gosh,
each tool
yes.
Okay.
Well, not really, but,
no,
I know
it's
where
there.
everything goes.
And he's very particular. I'm like, I can put it back. I know exactly where it
No,
came from.
no.
I did mess it up one time. I did not put it back in the right slot. So now I cannot justify, John, I can do it your way.
The rule is you put it on the top of the box. You do not put any of my tools back in the box.
Even
again.
if you know where they
You know.
go, you have to set them there.
Okay, got
But-
it.
And I do this with my own son. And
Okay.
he still thinks he knows it. You
Right.
know?
But to John's point, there's actually a good reason because, like a surgeon, you don't want to accidentally leave the scalpel inside the patient when you close up.
Yeah, let's not do that.
It can happen with mechanics where
Oh, yeah.
something gets left in the engine compartment, but if you
And
know
that's
where everything
another
goes,
thing about, you talk about owner assist. You got somebody else now in your toolbox, and then next thing you know, you're looking for a wrench somewhere or a socket.
I
you know?
actually recently heard a story. There was a guy who had a twin Comanche. He got an annual done on it. And then not long after, he wound up selling it. He didn't need it anymore. He just bought it to build his multi-time. The next mechanic that went and opened it, the new owner, they went to go do this inspection. He had been flying it around for months. They found a rag left in like one of the cylinders.
In the cylinder.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
up in top
yeah,
of the engine.
well,
Yeah.
like up in there, like there was,
Inside the cylinder.
It was like inside the engine. He said he had been flying around like that for months, and it wasn't until this new AMP went to go do this pre-buy and stuff on it that they found it. It was really bad.
And that's your worst nightmare, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, my tool's missing right here. And that's, again, if you got somebody else that works out of your box.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to know kind of what kind of tools, you know? Obviously, good screwdrivers,
Yeah.
you know? And then, you know, the screw guns you use in aviation aren't your DeWalt screwdrivers you use to work on your house. So, you know, there's really not any, you don't want to go out just to do one owner assist. And it just depends upon your level. I've got a guy I've been maintaining a plane 20 years now. And, you know, when he first came in, he'd paint the spokes and touch up the paint on the hubcaps, you know, on the Cessna
That
hubcaps,
was his
you know?
contribution to the first
You know,
annual.
And then, you know, the spinner would come off to do the timing, and then he'd polish the spinner, you know, and then he'd basically run around detail and have a little paintbrush and touch things up. And now, you know, he gets the compression gauges, holds them there for me. He knows how to adjust the compression gauges, and he knows to hurry, you know, and don't
Right.
take your time. You know, he knows I'm not the most patient guy. So, you know, and it's evolved over the years. And
So in another 19 years, John will trust me a little
Yeah,
bit more.
exactly.
Yeah,
you can hold
yeah.
the compression thing for
I can
him,
hold
so.
it. Yeah,
I
19
hope
years.
I'm still not doing compression 19 years from
Well,
now.
maybe
but,
you do.
You know, yeah.
So before I started doing like owner assisted annuals and maintenance, I actually read a couple of books ahead of time. I read Mike Bush's books on maintenance and whatnot, just to get an idea of what
Right.
I was getting into. What would you recommend for new owners to do when it comes to their maintenance?
Wow. You know, again, it's a tough call. It depends upon the relationship with the person that's working on the airplane. Most shops really don't want the owner around when it's a busy shop. It just gets in the way and interrupts the flow of work. You know, if you've got some of these independent guys that are doing it part-time, they're semi-retired, and, you know, they're working out of their pickup truck, you know, they welcome that kind of thing. They want the owner to do it. There's some owners that shouldn't be doing it, you know.
Right.
Dan, why do you look at me when you
I
said
did not
that?
mean it.
He
I
did
did
not.
not mean
He
it that
did
way.
not.
It wasn't. I didn't mean it in that context. I mean, you know, there's some guys that just aren't mechanically inclined.
Right.
You either naturally have mechanical ability or you don't. And it's the same way when you go to hire mechanics. Some of these young guys, they get out of school and, you know, they get their fresh A&P license, they're not mechanically inclined.
That's fair.
And so it really doesn't work out real well. And you have to find an area that they're strong in.
Cleaning.
Or, well, and that's actually, you know, a really good start. I mean, you learned a
Absolutely.
lot just
Absolutely.
doing that.
I absolutely.
And then
did.
there's other, like this plane that I looked at, whoever's been maintaining it, you know, since '79, they don't even look in the floors. So, you know, it's going to vary in each case. It's a case-by-case basis. You know, and then you've got the owner perform, you know, service that you could do, you know,
oil changes.
oil changes, spark plugs. And again, that's not for everybody. You
Right.
know, I had a P210 owner, and I'd walk them through multiple times oil changes. I wouldn't want them doing it on their own because you take the induction system apart to get the oil filter on that particular
210.
engine and design.
Gotcha.
Well, if that clamp's not tight, which
Or he pushes back and he
or they
folds the.
anything could go wrong there, and now you've got a mechanical problem. You can have.
Gotcha.
And just doing something as simple as an oil change.
So what I'm hearing is
And
that
you lost. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
You lost that coupling that one time.
I didn't lose it.
Well, yeah. And
Well,
mechanics make mistakes too.
Right, right,
you know?
right.
But you know, that's an in-flight anomaly.
Yes.
That came up. You know.
In
You
a
were-
very bizarre situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that what it boils down to is communicate with your AMPIA, your
a
aviation,
relationship
get a
with them.
relationship. Kind of go into it knowing up front what you need, what your role is, and the condition of the airplane that should be brought, like the cleanliness of the plane, should it be brought in already cleaned, et cetera.
And even that, do you want to do your own maintenance?
Right.
So if it's somebody that's looking to do a lot of their own maintenance, then they're going to probably have to, their fit isn't going to be with every place they go and talk to.
It's just about expectations going into it. Okay.
Well, and so the last thing I want to mention is I wanted to go ahead and start logging my AMT time because you never know. I don't want to get 6 years down the road of doing this and go, man, I wish I'd logged this because I could have my AMP by now.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and started, and on my annual, we put over 100 hours.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had over 100 hours of cleaning, scrubbing subflooring and wings and everything else. So 100 hours of learning and of hardcore education that makes me a better pilot because I now know the systems.
You
and
understand it
Right.
better.
I totally understand it better. I've still got a long way to go, but I understand it a lot better.
And I'll do that like with the rigging when I, did a lot of rigging work originally. When I first started out, I'd have owners not really participate, but they'd be present. And then now all of a sudden you learn, oh, so when I'm doing this, that's how that moves. That's what makes that work.
Well, I'll give a classic.
And not everybody, understands the mechanical
Right.
insides of the aircraft. And in a lot of cases, it helps because now they know why it's doing what it
All right.
does.
Classic example is on the 210. They're notorious for having trouble on a hot start. Okay, so I've heard why and vapor lock or whatever. I've heard that, and I've heard that you need to do step 1, step 2, step 3 on a hot start. But I didn't really internalize exactly mechanically what was happening with all the side panels removed, the subflooring removed, or the covers removed. I could now see, hey, John, this pipe that's coming down here by the front, that's the fuel line, right? He goes, no. The fuel line's coming here, and he showed me from behind us, and it comes down to that. That's your air, going back out. And I was like, oh, okay. So what happens is now it vapor locks the.
Oh, and you saw the header tank.
And I saw the header tank,
Right.
and I now know that's coming from the header tank. And that's what's happening. And that's why on a hot start with a Centurion, you've got to,
And you find out what that thing was that buzzes under your feet.
Right. So, just learn so much about exactly why things are happening. I could have given a check right answer to the fuel system on the 210, but it would have been just book knowledge. Now I kind of actually really get it.
Yeah,
So
no, that's great.
It was an eye opener, and I would recommend every pilot to do this, but I also know not every mechanic wants the pilot to do it. So you got to find out if you can.
Yeah, so
Don't
just,
be surprised if they say no.
Yeah, so just communicate with your AMPIA, set those expectations up front, see if it's a good fit between the two of you, and go from there. That's what I'm hearing.
John, thanks for coming back on. Any last words?
And then, one way to do it is start with the simple things, do the owner perform service, do your oil changes, get your mechanic, if they're willing to do it, to walk you through doing the oil changes. I mean, you know how I operate, and, I've got aircraft come in from, all around the country, and I only see that plane once or twice a year at the most. Well, working with me, and we've gone through the oil changes, they do their oil changes, that one customer I was talking about, we become good friends. I gave him a spark plug cleaner, so now he cleans his plugs, he's got the sprayers. I had you go out and get those sprayers.
And
now that's something that you want to know what an owner can do. That's something an owner could do. Get those spray bottles, keep that engine compartment clean.
Yep.
Start with the basic
some cheap
service.
paint brushes where you put small dowels on them and zip tie them on, and now you've got a brush that can get into those cracks and crevices. Yeah.
That's cool.
And then there's areas like, let's just say yours wasn't kept. I mean, yours has been cleaned for 20 years. It gets cleaned every year. But those that aren't, that's the kind of thing that's really handy. What an owner could get involved in is they could
Yeah.
learn, if you look in their subfloor and, you got a bunch of hardware in there and you got
Screws running around.
yeah, there's just a lot of stuff in there. It's never been cleaned. That's what an owner could start with doing is they could do, they could pull the carpet out. They could clean underneath the subfloors. They could clean the engine down,
Yeah.
But they should always do that stuff under the oversight of an IA, right?
Not necessarily.
You
You can
can't-
do that under owner performed service.
Okay.
Simple task, which is, not any complex removals
Yeah.
is the way
So-
that they make it.
I do oil changes on the Warrior.
Right.
But I will say, every third or fourth oil change, I actually have an AMP IA do it for, or an AMP do it for me, because when they're in the engine, they're looking at things. So you say
Exactly.
Yeah.
you see it
Exactly.
once a year. I want my AMP seeing things every couple of months or so, and the best way to do that is to get them to do the oil change. We actually found a small crack on my exhaust.
Sure.
Because they got up in there
On
and
an
they
oil change.
during an oil change.
And when you showed me how to do an oil change, that's exactly what you did. It wasn't just the oil change. While we were waiting for the oil to finish draining, you took me over every part of the engine compartment with a mirror and a flashlight.
Right.
And you looked at every joint. You knew where the
Lubricate
usual
the wastegate,
Yeah, and all
that kind of stuff. And yeah, if you're doing your own oil changes and the wastegate's not getting lubricated, well, same thing. It's I'm not getting manifold pressure.
Right.
And so doing those kind of things. Same with if you've got an oil leak. If your engine gets cleaned once a year and you're not keeping it up when you're doing your oil changes, and it has any leaks, by the time a year later it comes in, again, perfect example, that pre-buy, there's oil everywhere. I don't know where it's coming from. There's a lot of moving air underneath there, so you're not going to be able to tell
Yeah.
unless you keep the preventative maintenance up that you could be keeping up. And as an owner, that's the best start right there.
Yeah, no, this is good stuff. Thank you again so much for coming and
Sure.
talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So for those of
We'll
you guys,
put you to work next time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Have
right.
her come out and help Lola.
Apparently, I'm coming to tighten the screws after Dan on Lola.
Well, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget our sponsors like 67 Design, 67D.com. We've got ClemensInsurance.net. Jerry has saved me a lot of money with Flying Eyes, which Christy mentioned at the beginning. Use
They're my favorite.
Use our discount code, taking off all caps, one word, for 10% off. Marshall Protective Services, NPSProtects.com. Colton Mortgage, ColtonTakingOff.com, and Z-Vision, XEVision.com, the brightest landing and taxi lights out there.
And of course, thank you guys for supporting our channel. Supporting our sponsors helps support us, but we couldn't do it without you. So please like, subscribe, share our content. We'll see you all next time.
In the hangar.